In this video, we're going to talk about two additional measures of variation. They are called the variance and standard deviation. They use all of the values in the data set, unlike the range and interquartile range. Variance and standard deviation are related. The standard deviation is the square root of the variance, or the variance is the standard deviation squared. We have two symbols for standard deviation, and these are really important to recognize because we're going to be seeing them throughout this course. This first is the Greek letter sigma, which is kind of like an O with sort of a tail on the upper right side, and that is for if we are finding the standard deviation of a population. We use S if we are finding the standard deviation of a sample. So you notice a pattern here. With both mean and standard deviation, we use Greek letters to refer to mean and standard deviation of a population, and we use our regular letters, Latin letters, if we are looking at mean and standard deviation of a sample. So a lot of times we are working with sample data, and so what we will be calculating will be S. For the variance, we use the same symbols, but we put a squared on them. So symbols for variance are sigma squared if it's talking about the variance of a population, and S squared if we're talking about the standard deviation of a sample. Sigma squared and S squared have slightly different formulas, and so they're slightly different. Calculating standard deviation by hand is possible, but it's a lot of steps, and especially if the data set is large, it can be pretty time consuming, so we're just going to use Minitab to calculate it. So we have an example here where we have the number of defects for 10 client accounts, and we want to calculate sample variance and sample standard deviation. So we're going to do this in Minitab. I don't have a separate worksheet for this because it's just 10 values, but you can easily type these into the Minitab spreadsheet pretty quickly. And so I have those there. And then as usual, I'm going to go to Stat, Basic Statistics, and Display Descriptive Statistics. And I want to calculate only variance and standard deviation. Notice that they have this SE of mean. Sometimes people get confused when they're looking at results if that one is checked, and they will think that that is the standard deviation, so make sure that you're paying attention to that. Standard deviation in the Minitab output is abbreviated with STDEV. So we have our standard deviation 2.449 and our variance of 6.000. As usual, when you're doing problems in MyLab, you want to pay attention to how the numbers need to be rounded if they need to be rounded. And that's how you calculate standard deviation and variance in Minitab.